Over the past 3 weeks, Atlanta police say they've responded to 7 reported shootings in the Zone 2 precinct, which makes up the Buckhead neighborhood. Recent violent crime in Buckhead has members of a local nonprofit seeking to convert the neighborhood into its own city. Atlanta realtor Sam Linnaeus is CEO of the Buckhead Exploratory Committee, which has more than 300 members on its private Facebook group. The group is currently working to raise $15,000 to commission a study on what it would take to make Buckhead its own city. Atlanta's mayor said she doesn't believe the creation of a new city will solve the problem. President of the Buckhead Neighborhood Coalition, Jim Durrett, tells me his group is opposed to Buckhead becoming an independent city within Fulton County.
Fairburn police are trying to find the person who shot and killed a man yesterday morning. Officers responded to calls about gunshots at the Ashford Village apartment homes on Clay Street. There they found a 54-year-old man shot to death behind one of the buildings. Investigators say they're now reviewing surveillance to try to find the shooter. The sudden resignation of a former attorney in Georgia is now under investigation. B.J. Pak resigned as U.S. attorney earlier this month after President Trump called him a never-Trumper on the controversial phone call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. The Washington Post reports the Justice Department Inspector General is looking into it. In his resignation letter, Pak cited, quote, unforeseen circumstances. According to the Atlanta Business Chronicle, Pak will rejoin law firm Alston and Byrd in February.